Before we jump in, a quick note of who's behind this podcast. Imagine this. You're about to close this massive deal. You've been grinding for it. You're pumped. And then your customer's legal team decides to make things interesting. What happens if you get hacked? How do you protect your data? And then your brain just goes blank. That's the nightmare founders deal with all the time. That's actually what YSecurity solves, the sponsor of today's show. There are 40 plus security engineers who've actually done security at Apple, Uber, Microsoft, Robinhood, Brex, and so many more. And get this, you don't hire them, you rent them by the hour. No massive salaries, no expensive consultants, just real experts embedded in your company helping you get SOC 2, ISO, HIPAA, whatever it is that you need to close that big deal. Set a monthly cap, know exactly what you're spending, and close the deal. Head to ysecurity.io/startups and book your free strategy call. Your first 8 hours are free. 40 engineers, one full working day, totally free. Go take it. ysecurity.io/startups. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Security Podcast of Silicon Valley. I'm your host, John McLaughlin, and we have just an awesome, spectacular, amazing repeat guest. He's back on the show, Kevin Kane, co-founder and CEO of American Binary.
Thank you for having me, John, on your show. It's always an honor to talk with you and to be a part of anything that you're doing. I don't
No,
know
you're
many
too
people.
kind. You're too kind. It's the honor and the pleasure is all mine. I'm sure all of our listeners are dying to hear like all of the stuff that you've been through in the past 2 years or so, and like where's American Binary and what's going on with Kevin.
Well, a lot has happened in the last several years. I've co-founded American Binary. It's a network security company focused on post-quantum encryption. One of the things that's unique about our company in the world is that internet security is generally guarded by encryption for everyone. And there is a particular key exchange called the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and it guides everything on the internet. Every email, every WhatsApp message, every VTC connection that's encrypted uses this key exchange. A key exchange is, I'm going to send you encrypted some secret information, and I'm going to send you over a key that you can then use to receive the secret information that's about to come. And that key exchange that dominates everything on the internet is called the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, invented by Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman. Whitfield Diffie joined our advisory board last week.
Whoa.
And one of the things that's unique about our company is we developed a new key exchange that is not theoretical and in the lab, but has completed private peer review and formal verification from 2 DARPA performers and cryptographers for the US community. And they are really famous people. One is Dr. Thomas Shrimpton, who is a founder of Real World Crypto under the IACR, the International Association of Cryptological Research. It's like the Alan Turing level smart people who develop encryption for governments and for world internet security. And then the other one is Dr. Joe Kinnery. So both of them, who were also at Galois, a famous engineering firm that does contracts with DARPA and so on, they did the review. And after 6 months of review and using some modern tools that were not available 2 years ago to do this kind of review, we completed a total review of our security claims that are novel. And these security claims include a post-quantum encrypted key exchange, post-quantum encrypted authentication, and then meeting NSA standards for national security networks in a world of quantum computing, which is the latest standard that we're not aware of one company meeting that standard. And if they have not, we're not aware of it. And if they have, they're definitely not in software. And they're definitely not operating over mobile networks, which are more and more some of the sexy technical claims that my company has positioned itself for. We believe our solution, our VPN and our protocol, and we'll be in zero trust by the end of the year, is the future of internet security, especially as we go into a quantum era. And as we go into more details, I can tell you more and more and more about that. As so much has happened since the last time we spoke.
Well, that's so exciting. That's incredible. You've got these amazing like minds that have joined your advisory board. You've met a very rigorous standard for a new type of cryptography that's actually quantum resistant.
I
That's like an 11 out of 10 on the cool scale. And not to mention, like, as soon as these quantum computers become cheap, become readily available, can fit in your pocket, it's going to really change the game for how we think about security. Because all of the traditional algorithms are just going to go out the window, right? So, I mean, speaking of how the world is changing, you have all of the new advent of AI and AI coding assistants and agentic SDLC processes and all of this stuff. You got a favorite one? Do you use it in American Binary?
we have very tight rules on
That's
LLMs in the
good.
company.
That's good. To make your SOC 2 and all your certifications easier.
On a personal level, for personal things, I think they are very fun. One of my latest gripes is I noticed that one of the LLMs, I don't want to get in trouble, started being more factual and less inference based. And I was like, no, stop, go back. I don't want cliff notes for the world. I want social latent, unexplored latent space. I want high inference that might be wrong. Like I can do the rest without you. I don't need you to tell me what I already know. I want you to tell me things that I haven't thought of that might be dangerous to believe, but I want to see anyway.
Open
And I
ended.
think my personal opinion is maybe they should make two versions of the LM for smart people who can filter it, and for people who need to be told this is not real. I don't want to use a system built for those people. All of the fun out of it's gone now. You know, I used to say that when I was in the army is like I remember outside the military base and I was in Korea and I worked for JAG, so I was a criminal prosecution, and we enforced the rules, and we looked up the rules and laws, and gave commander guidance on how to handle problems. And whenever somebody would get hurt off the base, there were two types. I'm like parents. You know, it's like when the kid gets hurt and they want to make it off limits. I'm like, no, just the kid got hurt and don't make any change. And they're like, whatever happens again? And I'm like, what if it's not fun tomorrow? Who cares? Let it happen again. You know? So there was this incident where the soldier got into a fight and, you know, it was an ugly fight. And they were like, oh, now you have to have someone within arm's distance of you when you go off base to make sure that you don't get drunk and stupid. And I'm like, well, how often does that happen? Like once in 6 months? That's a pretty good rate. We'll live with that error rate. No change. You know,
Yup.
it's the same thing with like ChatGPT, you know, like what is the error rate of like people misunderstanding that it's not a god, it's not real. And if it's 1 in 100,000 people, I can accept those loss rates. We don't need to ruin it for the other 99,000 people. Just let the one person be wrong.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it's a great thing to be able to be wrong and then recognize that you're wrong, and you get an opportunity to learn and grow a little bit. Maybe you learn something new about how the world works. Maybe you get a new perspective of like how
I
you
came
thought
here
the
ready
world
to
like
be spicy. I came here to say that AI
could.
safety should not be made for the tails and punish the rest of us.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. I see it with Anthropic. I see it in OpenAI. They've got all these safety programs. And now, like, if you violate the terms of service, even if you're on the API, they're going to record your data. Forget ZDR. It's going out the window. Pack your bag, folks. Like, give all of your data to OpenAI and Anthropic. If it's a violation of their terms, which is, kind of subjective in some cases, they're going to record it. And I I would not be surprised if they use that data to improve their systems, which means, of course, like they'll train on it. Some IP issues might bubble up out of some of those cases, right? So, super curious to have your hot take. When do you think quantum computers will actually like be breaking Algamel or Diffie-Hellman or all of these like RSA?
You can put it at risk levels. So number one, the first is we're at a level of risk. Let's just mirror Google. A public company put a position out. A public company did that, right? So I don't think public companies make deadlines on the future. Google said by 2029 we should be concerned. That's 40 months. This is 4 years.
And then even if it is only like 4 years away, even then, if I'm just recording all of the
Harvest the tech.
encrypted, harvest it, and then you wait for 4 years and you'll be able to see everything, right?
Yes, it's a harvest attack.
It reminds me, the story of like companies stealing ideas from other companies. It reminds me of a couple of things. I saw this graphic once of like, ooh, cell phones before the iPhone, and there are all these like flip phones and like random things, and the BlackBerry was in there, kind of like somewhere, like a picture of all the different cell phones after the iPhone. They all look like the iPhone, all of them, and it changed like the way people think about their phones. And I don't know, I sort of see that as a, what was that quote that Steve Jobs had? Like, real artists steal. I think what he meant by that was not like to actually like steal the idea. I think what he meant by that was like, if you take a concept and you make it your own, this goes back to like being authentic. And like, what does that even mean to make an idea your own? Well, it means something because you're different and you're special and you bring all these different things to the table. And if you really make it your own, that's maybe worth something. Like, that's
I
how
think
new
adding
things get
value,
built, right?
I think iterative
Adding value.
innovation is one thing. Like, a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
innovation
it
is
is.
iterative off of another idea.
Yeah,
So
for sure, for
it's
sure.
okay to be inspired by something and make a better version of it. If I have an opinion on what should be, I have no patience, no understanding, no sympathy for someone who copies something to make money. I just don't. It's just my character. I tend to have a bias towards um, preferring to be around people who are so passionate about the problem, right? That they're so obsessed on solving the problem, so lost in solving the problem that they forget about money, and money is something that happens to happen as a result of that
Yeah,
obsession. I think that is the high trust outcome for humanity.
it is.
That results in a high trust outcome. It results in people being more beautiful people,
It does.
people that we want to be around, um, people that we're excited to see every day. One of the worst insults I've come up with was I always say when we're watching a movie and we see a character that our partner or our parents relate to ask ourselves, do our parents or our loved ones see us in that character or in the character on screen no one likes? And to be
Uh,
honest about that, to be honest about that with ourselves, and then to not allow ourselves to fall short of maybe being the person we want to be seen as. And so that means having a high internal standard and not breaking that internal standard, no matter how much it hurts ourselves.
yeah. Wow. I mean, like, okay, so being a founder, building new things, doing the 0 to 1 thing, that's extremely difficult in and of itself. But when you operate within like a set boundaries, these like very high expectations for oneself, do you find that that helps as a founder? Does that actually make things easier? It's probably harder, isn't it?
Having a higher expectation,
Yeah,
yes, it
I think that's
results in
harder.
long periods of being misunderstood because, there are two things that people often misunderstand from an investor perspective. Following the crowd and trend following are not the same thing, right? So when we follow the crowd, we get crap. That's going to be the outcome, right? Is nothing better than the market. Trend following is supposed to be reserved for following the trend of people whose track records are consistently beating the market, which means you got to be there at the time of trade. You got to be there on the trade with them at that moment. And if you're not in that deal and you're not in that moment with that trade, then you're just speaking thesis garbage, right? About trend following this and follow. But if you're not there at the trade, it didn't matter. If you're not there at the seeding of Facebook, you can say you're following how the thesis or whatever. Theses are meaningless if your trades aren't executing exactly where they need to be. And so the crowd is going to have a bunch of thesis you're going to follow. But unless you have the secret sauce to be there at the trade, it's just garbage.
Yeah, I I love that. I hear you. It's almost like that saying that timing is everything.
It is. Timing is everything. I've seen it. When we started this company, the time was not here and it wasn't here 2 years ago. And it's starting to come here now, but 2 years later, it's going to super be here. And 4 years later, super be here. But if you wait too late to start, you're not going to catch up because tech nowadays, especially in our area, it's to the point where you need 20 years of accumulated knowledge to do something like we're doing. You can't wing it on a weekend or at a meetup with some friends and hack this. It took us years of finding out what was wrong with our systems when they weren't working in the real world 2 years ago. And we learned that we were having a problem handshaking, which led us to developing a lot of solutions around our key exchange. But we didn't know that that was the issue. There's such a long road on learning what's going wrong with software that is new. It doesn't exist in the wild except for what you built, and then putting it in a complex system. It could have been any infinite number of problems that was causing it failure.
What's been the proudest moment that you've had since the last time we talked?
I think the proudest moment since the last time we talked for me, being able to speak truth to power without being afraid of how it will be received by people who disagree with it, because I have such a foundation that it's not on thin air. It's not on weak things. So nowadays, we challenge directly some of the world's most famous cryptographers and leaders from institutions around the world to look at problems in a way that they might not have. And to be able to speak with that authority, which was earned, is an incredible thing. It's like the three little pigs, right? So we built a brick house and we didn't build a hay house. And the brick house allows us to do things in it that you might not with a hay house, right? And everyone wants in your brick house because the hay ones are all collapsing around us. Which brings me to a different point that's technical. Using post-quantum encryption does not make the product quantum safe. You have to follow additional instructions, right, to do the cryptographic construction correctly. Investors might not be wise to invest in a post-quantum encryption company that was founded 3 months ago and that has like zero IP and they're going to build a post-quantum encrypted email client in 6 months. Unless their expectation is that they might get a result 4 years later that's product ready, because it's such a long road.
They didn't earn the right
And they
to the
might use the
pain and the
Diffie-Hellman
suffering to
key
learn.
exchange, but then they're using classical encryption in the cryptographic construction. So, and then, even if the AES side of it's still intact, when, that side is broken and when it's put on the internet, though, tell that to your customers who decide to stop using the product tomorrow because a bunch of crypto bros are freaking out on Twitter and X saying someone solved for the discrete logarithmic problem and broke this emails thing. I don't think anyone's going to wait for a cryptographer to say, well, actually, AES 256 is still secure inside. I think they're going to leave, or even worse, a bank, right?
For
So I
sure.
call
I
those
mean,
hay houses. So hay houses are solutions that are good enough.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the story from Atlas Shrugged. Where Hank Reardon, comes up with a new metal. It's stronger, lighter than steel. It's an imaginary metal. And all the scientists at the time are naysaying it. They build a railroad and they put a train on it. No one wants to ride on the train, of course, except for Hank Reardon, and Dagny Taggart. Jump on the train and they show everyone like, hey, everything's actually fine. Not only is it fine, but it can get across the country in record time. So something
Oh,
about being authentic to yourself and your values.
humanity has to survive. And so I look at, like I said to someone when I was overseas, I think the proper way to look at the world is imagine every year is the last year of humanity, and you want to prevent that end, and you're going to optimize your behavior, your culture, your actions, and your values around preventing that failure. And you're not going to outsource your survival to invisible things, to other people, to governments. You're going to own the outcome yourself to every level that you can. And when you're solving a problem in AI or any others, you assume no one else is going to solve it in the world. And you assume if you don't, bad things will happen to humanity. And then you escalate to what I would call a serious person. When we don't outsource our survival to invisible things or crowds that we can't hold accountable. I mean, I think the financial crisis in 2008 happened because people who built those things can move on to other jobs. So they are not owning the outcome for humanity because they can move on. So I think that you should never put in charge of things that humanity's survival resides on those who are not going to be held accountable for it under the under the cover of institutions. I think that the buck should fall on the human being, and they should look into the dark void and say, I will accept this problem, and I'm not going to face this problem under the cover of an institution. I'm going to face it myself so that the accountability matches the seriousness. And that is how we behave in our company. And as we scale, I'm going to insist that on people. It's going to filter a lot of people out. That's fine. They don't have to work here. They don't need a purpose on our cost, on our back in life. They can find that somewhere else.
I'm super curious. If you could go back in time and meet your younger self, would you take that opportunity? And what advice would you share with your younger self?
The biggest piece of advice, the one I struggle with the most, is people are complicated and you can have righteous standards for yourself, but be careful of judging other people in front of you for that, because that person might not meet your standard, but can help you in other ways. Look for the silver lining in all kinds of people, and don't be so quick to kick someone out of maybe guard yourself against them, but write them off as not useful because they don't meet your standard. So that's something I've learned, is that help comes from people sometimes we don't even like. That's very humbling, right? Because then we're looking into ourselves and saying, maybe I'm a little over indexing on this thing I don't like too much. Maybe it's not that much of a threat to me, this character trait or that thing. And for asking for forgiveness, man, I mean, I've grown so much. And everyone who I have hurt, I wish one day they would forgive me. But it doesn't always work like that, right? And even if you are forgiven, the damage is such that you can't be healed. So that sort of sucks about the journey. Not everyone you start with is the person you're going to finish with.
Yeah, no, that's really deep. I really appreciate that. It's humbling. It's true too. And you just never know. I've noticed, like, as a founder myself, you kind of have to get used to being, what's a good word? Like, unsatisfied?
Yeah, I mean,
There's always something. There's always like more. There's always like the next piece. There's always the drive for the fire.
as a friend of mine put it, what sharpens my senses on those introspective things is that, like, think of it like a role playing game. At my age, at 46, I only have a few turns left in the game and it's over. And that means your senses then make room for things other than your work. So you have your mission and vision, but is it really worthwhile to live just for that? I don't think it is, actually. And I think that that's a terrible way to live your life, is to live for mission and vision. I'm obsessed on it, but I'm not going to live for that. I live for people I enjoy being around. And if I don't enjoy being around them, I'm going to tell them that
You
I,
can make
I would
changes.
like,
That's
I'd
okay.
like, I'd like growth, right? And I'll grow so that we can be working hard and enjoying each other. Because I don't live long enough for anything else. And I'm not going to wait 5 years to be happy. I'm going to be happy today, integrated into my work. And one of the lessons I would tell 10 years ago to myself is, don't postpone happiness, integrate it into your work now. And if the people around you are not capable of it, demand they grow or find other people. Don't sacrifice yourself for people who can't match your happiness. That's a colder thing, I have to say. Some people will disagree. That's fine. I mean, when I was young, I worked so hard and I thought I'm going to come back and show my parents, and they were both dead before I got there. So I always tell younger people, don't count on that. Don't count on being successful and then coming back and showing people. Either they're going to be dead by the time you get back, or they'll have so moved on they're not recognizable anymore. So you can't live for that. You've got to integrate in the present piece, and you got to integrate them in the present. And you can't, sequence things. You got to do everything. You got to do love part. You got to do relationship part now,
You need
not
both
wait
those
for it.
things. You have to do it. Yep. That's so true. Well, thank you so much. Kevin Kane, the co founder and CEO of American Binary.
Thanks.
No, huge thank you. Really impactful shares. Huge thank you. Huge thank you.
Thank you, John. Take care.
And huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into another episode of the Security Podcast of Silicon Valley. I'm your host, John McLaughlin, and this has been a YSecurity production. One last thing before you go. Think about who you were 20 minutes ago. Maybe security's been that thing that's on your roadmap the thing that you'll get to right after the next sprint, the thing that you'll get to after the raise or after something. But here's the truth: SOC 2 and ISO, these things are not just checkbox, they're keys. It unlocks enterprise deals. It opens up regulated industries. It's the difference between selling to a 10-person startup and closing Fortune 500s. That's where YSecurity comes in. We don't just advise, we build. SOC 2, ISO, done right the first time. 40 plus engineers from Apple, Uber, Microsoft, Robinhood, Brex. This is not guesswork for us. This is all we do. And maybe you're not the one who needs this, but you know a founder who does. The one trying to break into bigger markets, the one doing the 0 to 1 thing. Send them our way. We have an awesome referral program. We pay for introductions that turn into partnerships. So head to ysecurity.io/startups. The first 8 hours are free. 40 engineers, one full working day entirely on us. YSecurity has your back. See you in the next episode.